What's up, gamers? How you doing? My name is John. In this video, I'll be reviewing the 400 Mini. This is an Atari 400 Classic Computer Mini. I love these mini consoles, right? It really kind of started back in the day with the NES Mini. Huge hit, sold out super quickly, and they followed up with a Super Nintendo Mini. I'm really keeping my fingers crossed for an N64 Mini. Nintendo has a patent. They reissued the patent for the N64. We'll see if that happens. I really hope it does come out soon. Of course, Sega did the Genesis, and Sony released the PlayStation 1 Mini. We won't talk about that. It's not a very good Mini, unfortunately. What's really neat is other companies like Retro Games have released these, are reissuing these Atari computers, and they've done Commodore 64, among other ones, and I think they do a great job. So this Mini includes 25 classic games. It does come with a joystick, and you can see the box is kind of to replicate the original look of the Atari 400 computer. The Atari 400 computer was one of the initial computers that Atari released. Came out in 1979 initially, obviously a lot bigger. It's about twice the size of what I have here. It was cartridge based. Initially, it wouldn't connect to, didn't have like a connection to a PC monitor, so you had to use like a TV monitor. They did have adapters, and later on different versions that did have that. But this is like really Atari's first dive into the classic, or I guess back then they weren't classic, they were just computers back in the day. But not only, what's really cool about this, and what really cool about what Retro Games does, unlike the classic NES Mini or Super Nintendo Mini, is that there's a USB, and you can actually load in ROMs. So you can play not only 400 games, you can play Atari 800 games, XL, EL games, and Atari 5200 games. Games files must be legally obtained, is what they say, so that's important. But you can kind of see the different consoles here. Some different games that are included in this is Star Raiders 2, Berserk, which is classic. There's a game called Lee, Miner 2249, 2249, Mole, or MULE, and then Millipede, follow-up to Centipede, of course. And they're really promoting, again, load your own games via USB. The joystick controller, it looks very similar and is about identical to the Atari 2600 controller. And the follow-up computer to this was the Atari 800 computer. And then, of course, they had the XL and the XE computers, and etc., right? So we'll open this up. We'll do an unboxing, show you some gameplay, show you the menu, how the games work, all that good stuff. Let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. Okay, here's a closer look at the box itself. Really done in the style of the original box for the Atari 400 computer. And then you have the different features. So the features are emulates, I mentioned before, 400, Atari 400, 800, XL, XE, and Atari 5200 games. 2600 games not included, right? 7800 games will not emulate, just so you know. Save and resume games, rewind up to 30 seconds of gameplay. It's also in, it looks like it's in French. Multiple scaling options and CRT filters. Play games with 1 to 12 attractive frames, and outputs HDMI to 720 HD at 5060 hertz via HDMI. Okay, you can connect your own devices, play your own games. That's always an added benefit to this. And these are the games that are included. So let's go and open this up. And as you would expect, it is tiny. It is a mini. So here is the controller. It's just a standard, basically, Atari 2600 controller joystick with a USB. Okay, so that's always nice to have. Feels good. Has a nice plastic sleeve here. I like how this is packed. Here it is. Now, in the original one, this would open up and you can put cartridges. This does not open up. You have 4 USB ports. So you can put 4 controllers all at once. On the back, you have USB. This is where you can load your ROMs. HDMI. This is your power, USB-C power. This is your on and off right here. Okay. Nice rubber pads on the bottom to make it so it doesn't slide when it's on. And what's interesting, they have these like membrane. These aren't, you can't push these now, but the original one, these are so like, back in the day, of course, like most keyboards, they had the, you can actually pop them off. They did so kids who were playing can't pop them off. That's like the membrane keyboard. But super cool. And this light would turn on red when it's on. Okay. So that's cool. So what else we got? An instruction manual. Talking about how to hook it up. And you can always go QR code, go to more instructions, etc. Some different languages. I believe Retro Games itself, I think it's a European company itself. You can get these on Amazon for free. I think this retails about $100 $100 on Amazon US. Not too bad. Also comes with your power. So it has 8 USB to USB-C. That's to plug it in. What else does it have? Has a nice long HDMI cable. Matches the color of the unit, which is very cool. And it looks like it's good length, probably 8 foot. But this is empty. Kind of funny. It's empty. There is no USB-C to power outlet, right? I guess I assume that most people have one because you have a smartphone or whatever, and I do have one, but that is not included. So, you know, a lot of places are doing that. A lot of things don't come with that anymore. I think it's costs on, you know, expenses. Now let's plug this thing in and take a look at the menus and gameplay and go from there. Thanks, guys. Okay, so when you turn it on for the first time, you're going to choose a language. We'll choose English. But you can do French and Spanish, etc. And I was mistaken. There's actually more buttons on this joystick than I realized. There's also various, if you enable the output mode. So I'll do output for the US or North America. And there's a top button, for example, around the joystick. There's a left or right and a bottom button just around the circle of the joystick itself. There's two mini buttons at the very top. One is the menu. So when you boot it up, you've got your games here. I'll show you the case cover for each game. Kind of similar to what you'd see in other mini menus. It does come with 25 different games, all alphabetical, at least by default. We'll check out Asteroids. Asteroids is a classic Atari game. Graphically, this game, the system itself, the Atari 400 came out 2 years, 1979, after the Atari 2600. So graphically, it's a little superior. It's quite a bit superior. Sound as well, audio as well. It's a late 70s computer. And Asteroids, if you haven't played Asteroids before, the goal is to move around the ship, destroy all these asteroids. They get smaller and smaller, and you can make sure you avoid them, not hit them like I just did there. Really fun port, controls pretty well. I always feel like the joystick itself in the Atari 2600 joystick, which for the most part I'm playing with this, is a little wonky, and that's kind of the case here, but still plays pretty good. To boost, you have to hit up. You can move around as well, moving the joystick. So go ahead and hit the menu button at the very top. You can do bounce. This is various options button here. You can do fast, slow. Menu, go back to the menu. And you have a save slot. You have save slots here. It was 4 for each game. You can save each. You have up to 4, which is nice. So if you can always continue it later, which is great. Let's check out Airball. I'm not really familiar with this game. It's kind of a 3-dimensional dungeon game by Atari. And it reminds me of a classic like D&D kind of game, but potentially like this blob, this ball. You just move around. It's actually the controls are kind of wonky, to be honest. Because you have to kind of move diagonally in this, and it took me a while to how to figure out how to like move up the stairs. You have to actually jump up the stairs, but just trying to figure out the direction and angle of the blob takes a little bit of getting used to be honest with you. But I'm sure later on there's enemies in this game, but yeah, you have to jump up the stairs. All the games load really quick, and even graphically with color palettes and everything, pretty impressive considering this came out, 6 years before the NES? I guess it would be 4 years before the Famicom in Japan, so more of an 8-bit style. But you can see kind of where these games kind of evolved, and this is definitely earlier on, but you can see its color palette's not bad. Certainly. Up and dive with spikes. Start over. Okay. We'll go back to the main menu. Check out some more different games. Battlezone. This is a game that came out originally in the arcade by Atari. It's a vector style game. If you hit the menu button, you can go to the alphabet there or the keyboard, and there's various options there. Show it kind of briefly. And this game is quite challenging because you have to avoid. It's first person tank game, but you have to watch out if they fire at you. You got to move quickly, and sometimes it's hard to move out of the way quick enough. So there you got him. You go for it. Looks like he got me, or someone got me from the side. The very top is kind of the map of where all the enemies are. Goal is to clear the screen of all the tanks, and occasionally you'll run into like UFOs and things like that. But not a bad port. Certainly, it definitely reminds me. It has resemblance of the vector-style arcade game. The arcade game is really cool because there's a telescope you look through, which is really cool, kind of unique gameplay. There's the UFO. Sound effects aren't bad. Okay, we'll go back to menu, hold down the menu button. And let's go back. Berserk. Boulder Dash. Classic. Capture the Flag. This game reminds me, it's like a very early first-person perspective game. Actually quite impressive graphically. It reminds me of Baseball 2000. I think it came out for... I know there was a version for the original Game Boy. I think there was a port for the Super Nintendo, but kind of earlier. But the game, obviously this is 2-player, and you have to capture the flag, obviously, in a maze. You kind of move around this maze. So it's kind of challenging, kind of hard to get used to, control-wise, a little wonky again because of the joystick. But graphically, very impressed by this game for early computer. Okay, next game I want to show you is Crystal Castles. And this is another arcade port from Atari. It plays similar. It's a maze game, kind of like similar to Pac-Man, but it's done on a 3D scale. And you control this bear, and there's this enemies. You got to collect all the dots on the screen on this 3D kind of scale screen. It kind of reminds me of like very early Marble Madness as well, which is also by Atari, and kind of same engine. You can jump over the enemies. You can get kind of hidden hat and kind of avoid the enemies that way. In various stages, there's different puzzles or maps and various items you get. So it's quite a fun. It's actually a pretty good port. The bear itself, Bentley Bear, I believe his name is, kind of looks kind of weird in this particular port, but certainly graphically much better than the Atari 2600 version. Even up there, better than 5200, honestly. But pretty good port overall. Very impressed. Bentley the Bear would make later appearance in an Atari Jaguar game called Atari Karts, which is kind of their clone of Mario Kart, and Bentley Bear was one of the main characters in that, just as a side trivia. These trees are a little tricky because they're hard to jump over. The enemies also collect dots too, so unlike Pac-Man, so you get more points the more dots you get. Go back to the main menu. Electricade. This is interesting. This is kind of a first-person racing game. You can pick different countries. You can do either England, the UK, or you can do the US. Pretty cool. And to go forward, you actually hold up on it. It's kind of odd controls. You don't hit the action button, which is unusual, and kind of a first-person. Pretty smooth overall. Not too bad. And like later on, you get these orbs that you run into. I'm not quite sure how to avoid them. There's like an orb right there. It's kind of weird. And slows you down, and then there's another one coming up, and I don't know how you avoid those. I'm not quite sure what you do in this game. It kind of reminds me of Pole Position, but like a first-person Pole Position. Graphically, much better than Pole Position from what I'm seeing here. Pretty smooth. Shows off the good graphical power of the Atari 400 computer. This definitely game could not be played on the Atari 2600. Absolutely not. Graphically, it would be superior. The save slot. These are all emulators, and that's nice about these is you can save them. Absolutely. Encounter, Flip and Flop, Henry's House, Hoover Boover. You can go display. There's a menu here. You can either do 4:3 or pixel perfect. You can also do scale. We'll turn that on. Kind of some scale lines. Choose frame. There's various different frames you can choose. None of them I'm really huge fans of, to be honest with you. But if you prefer a frame, that is an option. We'll go and pick one of them. I think the one to the left here looks probably the most retro. We'll check with that. So I'll have to hit the top button to go back. And to exit, top button again, so it's upper button. We'll stick with 4:3 for now. Let's check out Lee. This is obviously hinted towards Bruce Lee. It's a karate game, or kung fu game, rather. And you can pick your players. And you can kick, you can punch, you can get these various items. You gotta watch out for these ninjas who get you. Boom, got him. Hit him twice. Look at this guy, like a sumo wrestler or something. He's green. Bro. Oh, you can also rewind and stuff. We'll go back to that in a second, though. It's just kind of cool. There's an option You can rewind up to 30 seconds in the game. So if you mess up, you can go back and rewind it, which is unique. Very cool feature. Next game I'll show you is Millipede. It's a follow-up to Centipede, which is a great game. Both are classic arcade games by Atari. Game controls fairly well using the joystick, which is nice. And when you pass the level, it changes, and you got to get these enemies while they're going down. Watch out for the spiders, of course. Get the millipedes, and it's very challenging. There's like a combo button. You have to put menu, and I think it's left to get to the rewind. Here it is, and you can rewind it by pushing back or an action button. So that's kind of nice. Again, if you screw up in the game, you can kind of rewind it, and you can continue to where it left off. It takes about 3 seconds to load. And here, back in action. So definitely, I also want to mention the scan lines. I know the capture device is capturing it well, but I think the scan lines look fairly well. That's another good thing about emulation. You can add the scan lines, kind of replicate a CRT monitor, so to speak. And 30 seconds is actually quite a long time to rewind it back. So very, very unique. So you can go back. Okay, we're going to check out another option, Pixel Perfect. We'll keep the scan lines on. We'll change the frame a little bit too. It's kind of a neat frame right there. We'll stick with this one. I don't have time to go through every single game, unfortunately, but there's a lot. Let's check out... do basketball. This game looks kind of interesting. It's a one-on-one basketball. This game definitely has not aged well. I think graphically this is probably the least impressive game I've seen in the collection so far. And I'm the guy in the pink, in case you're curious, or purple, whatever color that is. And to shoot, you got to hold it down, and kind of awkward to shoot. Yeah, the controls aren't the greatest. It's amazing if I can make a shot. Oh, bounce it off the backboard. It's terrible. Oh, he stole it from me. So we can make a shot. Hold it. Oh, look at that. Most awkward shot, but I made it. Amazing. Okay, the last game I want to show you is Berserk. This game is classic by Stern, which is kind of the same family company that actually owns Stern Pinball today, which is interesting. They actually made arcade games back in then. So Berserk is an classic arcade game. The sequel is Frenzy. The goal is you're supposed to shoot all the robots on each stage. And this game actually looks pretty decent to the arcade port. It's actually pretty impressive. It's super challenging, as Berserk typically is. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate you guys leaving a comment. Let me know what you guys think of the Atari 400 computer. What games do you recommend checking out for the Atari 400 computer? I appreciate you guys checking out. Thank you again for subscribing. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. And, of course, game on.